Commissioner O'Connell, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't hear Melissa, but I can hear you, Patrick.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Melissa.
I don't know why that's so hard. Okay.
Thank you,
Um,
Melissa. Did
you're
you
quite
need,
well.
do you have any questions?
Um, no, just I know it could be hard for me to get all these names of the speakers. I don't know if you will send them to me after. I'm writing them down as they come in, as much as I can figure out.
I
I can
believe
send you a
Patrick
list.
is keeping a list.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
and
Okay,
I'll
thank
ask
you.
everyone on Zoom who's here to provide comment to change their screen name so it's their name they signed up with.
Oh, that'll help. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. It is 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. So this is a continuation of the public comment hearing that the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission commenced last week. We are now ready to resume. So thank you all for coming to this meeting and for your perseverance and patience as we work to ensure your comments are heard on this matter. We had an overwhelming interest in providing public comment last Thursday, February 5th, and the facilities we have cannot accommodate the number of public commenters that showed up. If you signed up to provide comment last week and you did not have a turn to speak, please take this moment to type your name into the chat, and our staff will find you on the list and place you in the queue to provide comments. The purpose of this meeting is to hear public comments on the proposed acquisition of PNM by Troy Parent Co., which is a subsidiary of Blackstone Infrastructure. The docket number for the case is 25-00060 UT. We know that this is an issue that many people want to provide public comment on, and we want to hear your comments. On that note, please remember that written public comments on this or any other matter can always be made by using PRC E360. So that's e360.prc.nm.gov. You can click on, to make it easier, you can click on the plus sign in the bottom right corner of the page to submit a comment. Additionally, we will have another in-person public comment session on February 17, and that's currently scheduled for 1 to 7 p.m. The location is not finalized yet, but we will let you know where it will be as soon as possible. The hearing for this case is scheduled for May 4, so that's when it's going to start. We have assigned hearing examiners to the case who will serve as administrative law judges to process it on behalf of the commission. The hearing examiners will conduct the hearing, collect facts and evidence. They will identify relevant issues and eventually produce what is called a recommended decision. The parties to the case will have an opportunity to submit comments, protests, exceptions to the recommended decision. And once the commission has all the information it needs to evaluate the case, including the recommended decision and any exceptions, the commission will schedule the case and for decision at an open meeting. We have not made any decisions on this matter. We know that many people want to make comments on this case, and we will try to hear as many of them as possible. But if we are unable to hear from everyone tonight, please know that we do have other opportunities for comment. We have a long list of people who signed up for both in-person and virtual comments at the last meeting, but they couldn't speak because we ran out of time. So tonight we will start with the comments from public officials. If you're a public official and you're on the Zoom and would like to provide comment, please go ahead and let our staff know via the chat. And in general, we will allow those officials to speak when they are available. Then we will call on people from the previous meeting's list. As I noted at the start of the meeting, if you signed up to provide comment last week and did not have a turn, please let us know in the chat. Our staff will find your name on the list and place you in the queue. So if you are called to speak but do not respond, we'll move on to the next person on the list and will not come back to you at this meeting, but you can still participate in further comment hearings and submit written comments, as I mentioned, through our website, so that we can accommodate as many comments as possible. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. Individuals that are represented by or representing a common organization or association may be asked to select one individual to act as spokesperson for the group. Also, we have someone transcribing this meeting, and so we'll plan to take some breaks roughly every 90 minutes. So want to repeat that we're interested in your comments about the case, and we are listening. We understand that this case is important. We're hosting these meetings because we want to hear from you, because we want to do what's best for New Mexico. So thank you all for being here, for your interest in this, and for your patience. So final reminder, I want to note the language in our notice for public comment hearings. It says commenters shall at all times conduct themselves in accordance with proper decorum. Profane or vulgar language or gestures will not be tolerated. Audience members shall not disrupt a hearing by speaking out of turn or without being recognized by the commission, and shall not incite others to do so. The commission retains the right to remove disruptive attendees and individuals from the hearing who fail to conduct themselves in accordance with these provisions. So with that, thank you all, and haven't been keeping track of the chat, but we do have one of our staff members, Patrick Rodriguez, who will be monitoring that and will be calling people's names. Patrick, I will turn it over to you. And as a reminder, please start with any public officials that may be online.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And like the chair said, are there any public officials in Zoom right now wishing to provide comment? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chair, I'll start with those who signed up last week, and I'll start with Terry Cole.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Terry Cole, and I'm the President and CEO for the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. I'm fortunate to work on behalf of the business community every day, clearly focused on one goal: to make our city and our state a great place to start, grow a business, and raise a family. A key component to achieving that goal is reliable, affordable, and clean energy. PNM stands at a very important crossroads: how to fund the investment required to realize the full potential of the Energy Transition Act. Over the next several years, it's likely to cost as much as $3 billion to modernize the grid and to build or acquire power generated from renewable sources. We need to really realize and be realistic about the scale of this undertaking. A utility of PNM size would find it difficult to attract the level of investment capital required without straining its financial position and ultimately passing those costs on to customers. If we want the good things that the ETA brings, then PNM has to have a way to finance the required investments. The acquisition by Blackstone is the fulfillment of that need. The question before us is whether we're prepared to invest at the scale this moment requires. The Blackstone acquisition makes that possible. As a lifelong New Mexican and a leader in the business community, I deeply appreciate the service PNM provides to its customers and its steadfast commitment to the community. None of us want to lose that. We want to keep reasonable rates, reliable supply, and community involvement. The way this acquisition is structured, we can preserve what matters most while gaining the investment strength needed to carry us into the future. The proposal delivers the investment we need while preserving the local accountability we expect. We strongly urge the PRC to approve it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
Okay, next, Nancy Galloway.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Galloway. My husband and I have lived in Albuquerque since 1999. Please say no to this acquisition. If Blackstone acquired P&M, New Mexican families and small businesses would pay the price. Blackstone plans to spend $3.4 billion on capital projects over the next 5 years. That cost plus interest would be passed along to ratepayers for decades, and much of that new infrastructure is driven by data centers, not by the everyday needs of New Mexicans. Private equity firms like Blackstone exist in order to generate maximum profit for their wealthy investors. They don't care about benefiting New Mexicans. Blackstone already has a long track record of exploiting people for extreme profit. The PRC does not have the capacity to effectively regulate a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm like Blackstone, especially with their proven lack of transparency. For the protection of New Mexican families, please do not approve this acquisition.
Okay, next, Ernie Sidawaka.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Ernie Sidawaka, President and CEO of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce, we want to express our strong support for the proposed acquisition by Blackstone Infrastructure. The Hispano Chamber consists of 1,400 members across New Mexico, with roughly 90% of them being in the service area of P&M. We pride ourselves as being a small business chamber. 70% of our membership base has fewer than 30 employees, and approximately 60% have less than 10. We believe this acquisition will positively impact P&M customers and the state of New Mexico as we look toward economic growth. Investing in infrastructure, particularly the power grid and clean energy investments, becomes essential. This acquisition becomes essential. Blackstone's financial strength can significantly accelerate those crucial investments for the benefit of current and future businesses and the economy at large. We wish to highlight several key benefits associated with this agreement. Employee stability. There will be no changes for current employees, company leadership, nor the headquarters. Local management. P&M will continue to be locally managed and independently operated, with headquarters remaining in New Mexico. Community support. P&M will maintain its commitment to charitable contributions. Residential rate credit. $105 million residential rate credit will be provided over 4 years, which doubles the amount of any other New Mexico utility acquisition. Low income assistance. $10 million will be allocated to the P&M Good and Ever Fund over 10 years, tripling support for low income customer bill assistance. Economic development, workforce training. $35 million will be dedicated to economic development and workforce training initiatives. Clean energy, clean technology investments. $25 million will be invested in clean technology without any cost to customers. This proposed acquisition has already received approval from the Public Utility Commission in Texas and the FERC. Furthermore, and maybe most importantly, P&M will continue to operate under the jurisdiction and your oversight. We are confident that this acquisition will foster continued economic prosperity and enhance the services provided to our members and to all P&M customers. We strongly urge you to approve this acquisition. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Endedith Lopez, and I apologize if I messed up your first name there.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Enedith Lopez, and I am a researcher at Los Jardines Institute. Los Jardines is a statewide grassroots environmental and economic justice organization, and I am here today to urge you to deny Blackstone's P&M and Texas A&M acquisition. And I'm also here speaking as a ratepayer. As a young person, I cannot help but feel utter frustration with our policymakers who time and time again are leading with the logic of putting business first and profits for the interest of private investors who frankly have no relationship to New Mexico. This isn't simply just an economic opportunity, but rather our lives that are being played with. Due to the structures of our society, access to energy is a necessity for survival and should be treated as a human right rather than a commodity. Plenty of people this past week and today are here to plead to you that you do not sell New Mexicans' future to a private equity firm with questionable labor practices, exploitive investments in housing and data centers, and a corporation that has been found guilty of child labor. In addition, Blackstone will only be accountable to their investors, not to us, not to New Mexicans. I fail to understand how we are justifying this as economic development. This is a reckless proposal and one that our communities aren't going to take lightly. Blackstone's business model serves the interests of the elite. They will capture our energy sector, build out their massive energy infrastructure in fossil fuels and data centers, and later foot the bill to an everyday New Mexican. Meanwhile, myself, my neighbors, and the larger New Mexican community are working long days, hours, and weeks to pay our basic necessities and our energy bills now. Just to be clear, this is a false solution, not economic development. If this acquisition goes through, it's a slap in the face to those and all of us who are currently struggling to survive. Like me and many others in this room, this is our home. I want to build the rest of my life here, but that will not be possible with the corporate capture of our public utility. I urge you to consider the possibility of public ownership over PNM, similar to the bill that Senator Pope is currently, to the memorial that Senator Pope is proposing at the legislature, to ensure that investments stay in our community and stay in our state. New Mexicans know what's best for our futures. Do not sell us out to this irresponsible and unethical corporation. We refuse to be displaced. And just to make it clear, New Mexicans and our future are not for sale. Thank you.
Okay. Before I continue, can I ask those on Zoom to change your screen name on Zoom to reflect the name you signed up with? So it'll be easier to call on you. Okay, next, Donna Dwell.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the PRC. My name is Donna Dowell. I'm a retired family nurse practitioner, a PNM ratepayer, a homeowner, and a property owner participant in public assisted housing. I live 30 miles outside of Albuquerque. I was a Zoom participant of the public comments meeting on February 5th and Zoom participant in today's PRC 10 o'clock a.m. open meeting, but was not afforded opportunity to give my comments, even though I signed up on the line online to do so for both meetings. During the meeting this morning, it was stated that there were not online participants waiting to comment, though I was indeed waiting. I also tried to give comment on the PRC website, but was not able to submit my comments without an upload, which I did not have as my comments fit into the comment box provided. May I suggest a streamlined form that allows comments right on the form without uploading? I'll proceed with my comments now. Allow me to point out once again the real consequences of allowing private equity firms like Blackstone to acquire ownership in areas of essential services and where the public good is at stake. Most of my decades-long career as a nurse in New Mexico has been in rural areas, Pueblos, Tierra Amarilla, Peña Blanca, Farmington, Tucumcari, Las Vegas, Shiprock, just to name a few. I have firsthand knowledge and direct experience with New Mexico's rural communities and their enormous challenges to accessing and affording healthcare. The private equity business model, one that is inherently extractive, has bought up 38% of New Mexico rural hospitals. This model targets small, rural, financially vulnerable community hospitals. After such acquisitions, there are inevitable reductions in services and staff, and reductions in the public's access to care in the name of maximizing profits. I trust the board is aware of Blackstone's history, for example, their track record in Indiana, where utility customers' rates increased 2 and 3 times after the company bought up just 20% of that public utility. I shudder to think what Blackstone will do after acquiring full ownership of PNM. I object to the PRC voting in favor of huge profits for Blackstone and big data centers, while disregarding other options that will afford New Mexicans reasonable, affordable rates and respect climate goals. I'm asking the PRC board to hear and see what is clearly being said over and over again by the public, to deny Blackstone's application. Thank you for taking my comments, and have a good evening.
Okay, next, Alex Stevenson, go ahead with your comment.
Hi, my name is Alex Stevenson. I'm an Albuquerque resident and a principal member of the technical staff at Sandia National Labs. I'm here to express my outrage at the very consideration of this proposal as politely as I can. When I heard about this acquisition, this proposal, my jaw hit the floor. Like everyone here, I've been hearing stories for years about private equity and how their entire mission is to scoop up companies, wring as much money out of them as they can, file for bankruptcy, and then leave the workers and consumers holding the bag. This is what they do. I want to stress that this is not some sort of conspiracy or speculation. It's actually in the very structure of what they do. They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders, not the people who work at the companies, not the consumers of the products that the companies produce. If they have to make a choice between their profits, for example, if it's a hot summer day and the AI data center is, if the choice comes down to whether they keep on the lights at the AI data center or our homes, we know what their choice is. They have an obligation, a financial obligation written in their contracts and in their mission statements to do that. It's frankly a sign of rotten decay in the country that allows these corporations to exist in the first place, but that's well beyond the scope of this hearing. Some of the victims of these private equity companies are things like Toys R Us that, you know, at a nostalgic level, it's kind of the only thing I care about, but it started getting very serious when these corporations set their sights on our basic human needs like housing and healthcare. They see our humanity, our human needs as a resource to be commodified, and they're going to squeeze profits from our very bones if they can. And that makes the stakes very high. They're coming for our public utilities now, and these are resources that are supposed to be under control of the communities that use them. The question that really should be asked by everyone here is, how did this even happen? How did we get to this hearing today? I sat down to write out these comments, and I had a whole long list of harms that Blackstone has caused, and while all these promises they're making aren't worth the paper they're written on, but at some point I realized, commissioners, you know all of this already. You didn't fall off the cabbage truck yesterday. You know exactly what private equity is. You know how they operate. I've read your resumes. You aren't clueless yokels that got dropped into these positions. You have an immense responsibility to manage the public utilities of New Mexico on behalf of the people who live here. And yet a New York firm was able to come in, make a proposal to take ownership of those utilities, and you did not run them out of town. I don't know what the explanation for that is. Blackstone is the biggest name in private equity. When you heard that name on the phone, you should have hung up the call, cocked your shotgun and told them to get off your porch, whatever. I don't understand how this commission has allowed the acquisition to progress all the way to this public comment session. I think you can gauge from the amount of attention this has gotten that you know where the public stands. And we have no democratic say in what goes on here. We didn't elect any of you. We don't get to vote on any of this. We basically have to come to these public comment sessions and complain about it, and that's it. You have no obligation to listen to us. If we don't have any other method of recourse about this acquisition, we're going to have to come up with our own. Y'all are going to have to decide if you're comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, next, Del Esparza, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Del Esparza. I'm the founder of Esparza Digital and Advertising, and also I'm a member of the board for the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. I'm a native son of New Mexico and raised my 3 children in the great state. Unfortunately, 2 of them were forced to leave New Mexico to find opportunities elsewhere due to limited job prospects. That is why I'm here today, is to express my strong support for the proposed acquisition of TXNM Energy, the parent company of PNM, by Blackstone Infrastructure. This represents a transformative long-term investment in New Mexico's energy future. At its core, this partnership delivers what our utility needs the most, and that's capital. This $11.5 billion transaction provides financial stability that the public markets cannot consistently offer. Blackstone has already invested $400 million in new equity that will fully fund PNM's $3.4 billion 5-year capital plan, supporting grid reliability and also meeting the goals of ETA, our Energy Transition Act. All this without exposing customers to volatile market conditions. Equally important, PNM will remain rooted in New Mexico. The company will stay headquartered in Albuquerque. Current management will remain in place. All IBEW agreements will be honored, and there will be no layoffs or pay cuts for at least 3 years. This agreement also delivers $175 million in economic benefits for New Mexicans, including rate cuts, workforce development, clean technology investments, and expanded support for low-income families. Blackstone is committed to holding this investment for at least 10 years, and to protect New Mexicans, PNM will continue to be fully regulated by the New Mexico Public Regulations Commission. I strongly urge you to support this acquisition. Thank you.
And next, see if I got the name here. Armand Alex, go ahead.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Armand Alex. I'm actually calling in from Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm speaking today because my community lives at the other end of this decision that you're making before you. Corpus Christi is home to the 3rd largest port in the United States. Our primary imports and exports are oil, gas, and petrochemical products. We host major LNG export terminals that rely directly on gas that is extracted from New Mexico and the Permian Basin. Decisions about utilities, extraction, and energy ownership here do not stop at state lines. They move along pipelines, transmission lines, and shipping routes, and they land in communities like mine. I come from a place where the air consistently carries benzene and sulfur, where cancer clusters and asthma rates are lived realities, and where working class Black, Brown, Indigenous, and migrant communities are told that sacrifice is the price of progress. So when I hear that Blackstone, a $1 trillion private equity firm, is seeking to take control of New Mexico's largest electric utility, I recognize the pattern. Blackstone profits from housing consolidation and rising rents. It invests heavily in data centers that demand enormous amounts of electricity and water. It controls energy infrastructure through companies like Tallgrass Energy, advancing false solutions like hydrogen projects and pipelines that bypass free, prior, and informed consent. Now it wants to own a public utility. This is not diversification, it is consolidation of power. Private equity brings opacity, not accountability. It brings pressure for rate increases, not affordability. Decisions are made in Manhattan boardrooms by people who will never breathe the air or drink the water affected by them. And so when utilities are shaped to serve investor returns, extraction increases upstream and export infrastructure expands downstream. That means more drilling in the Permian and New Mexico and more pollution in Gulf South port communities like mine. I'm here to say that communities on both ends of this system are already living with the consequences. The Commission's responsibility is not just to approve a transaction, but to protect the public interest. Electricity is a life essential service, not a financial asset. New Mexico is not for sale, and neither are the communities tied to its energy system from Tiwa lands to the Gulf South. I urge you to deny this joint application and stand on the side of energy democracy, public accountability, and community survival. This acquisition would create a closed loop for-profit system for Blackstone. Blackstone-backed utilities sells power to Blackstone-backed data centers fueled by gas from Blackstone-backed energy systems, while ratepayers absorb the costs and risks. Last week, in-person comments related to this particular docket item consisted of about 50 persons against and 4 persons for. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next, Katira Sava. Go ahead with your comment. Katira Sava. Okay, moving on. Kevin Eads.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, thank you for the.
Hello. Oh. Hi, this is Katiri Sava. I was called to give my public comment. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough. I'm here at work.
That's okay. Katira,
Can you hear me?
Kevin Eads. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm gonna let Kevin Eads go first and then you're next. Proceed, Kevin.
All right.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name's Kevin Eads and I'm president of Moles and Corbin. Our firm has deep roots in New Mexico. We provide engineering, surveying, and design services on infrastructure projects throughout the state. I speak to you today as someone who understands infrastructure investment, what it takes to plan it, build it, and sustain it. And I'm here in support of Blackstone's acquisition of PNM. In my line of work, we see every day how critical, reliable energy and infrastructure is to projects that drive our state's economy. The Energy Transition Act has set New Mexico on an ambitious path, one that will require adding approximately 0.5 gigawatt of new capacity annually. When you factor in the grid upgrades and reliability improvements that are also needed, you're looking at a capital requirement of $3 to $4 billion over the next 5 years. And that's an enormous undertaking, and it's not one that PNM can shoulder alone. Blackstone offers something that's hard to find in today's financial markets, and that's capital. Through its Evergreen Infrastructure Fund, Blackstone takes a long-term view of returns, not one just driven by the quarter-to-quarter expectations that publicly traded companies face. For a utility that needs to make sustained multi-year investments in generation and grid infrastructure, and that approach is a natural fit. I also want to highlight Blackstone's pledge to use equity, not debt, to finance the transaction. As an engineer, I can appreciate structures that are built on solid foundations. This commitment ensures that the financial burden of the acquisition does not flow down to PNM or to the ratepayers. If New Mexico is going to compete for new economic development and for the kind of investment that brings better jobs, innovative companies, long-term prosperity, we need strong and modern energy delivery system to support that growth. The proposed acquisition gives PNM the resources and financial backing to build that system, and it does so with robust safeguards. I encourage the commission to approve this acquisition, and thank you for your time.
Okay, Kateri Sava, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you so much. Apologies for earlier. My name is Kateri Sava. I'm a 35-year-old farm worker calling in from the farm here in the South Valley. I did attend the meeting last Thursday and waited to hear if I could give public comment. And I will be attending the May 4th hearing as well and tuning into that however I can. I've been incredibly touched by the testimony that you've heard, public comment from people who are speaking in opposition to this proposal. I'm strongly opposed to the proposal that our utility be acquired by Troy or Blackstone. You know, it strikes me that the majority of folks who have spoken in support of this tend to will likely profit from this kind of endeavor, whereas ratepayers like me, I live in District 5, will likely bear the weight of what's to come if you do approve this. I had an elder who I was speaking to about this hearing with ask, why would Blackstone want to acquire PNM? And I thought that's a great question, you know, because they really
Terry, you're on mute.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to go to the next person on the list.
Okay.
Rochelle.
Terry, yeah.
Rochelle Pena. Okay. Can you do a quick sound check? Can people hear me?
Patrick, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Who is this?
Rochelle Pena.
Oh, okay. Yes, Rochelle. Go.
Hi, my name is Rochelle. Thank you for giving us additional time to speak. I'm coming kind of off my shift in the ER. I come as a concerned healthcare worker working in acute care. I see firsthand pretty much every day our worsening climate crisis from kind of our exploitation of our resources, as well as worsening housing and utility crisis push people into crisis. These health impacts are not abstract. Our ERs, ICUs, our rural healthcare centers are filled to the brim with people already struggling to get by as it is. It seems like there's plenty of flags out there that just shows how these private equity firms just do not care about the people. And all they want is profit. And I am tired of seeing New Mexicans suffer when they are already trying as much as they can. I see children come in for worsening asthma exacerbations. I mean, have you seen just our temperature? It's 60 degrees in February. I'm seeing people, farm workers, pass out. I'm seeing people having to choose, do I pay for my medical bill or do I pay my utilities? And I am tired of just seeing people suffer here in this state, and these big corporations just don't care about us. And if you care about New Mexico as much as I do and everybody working as first responders, I want you just to take a look and just think about what everybody's saying here. But yeah, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse out there, and we have a chance to stop that and maybe actually put faith in our community here. We don't need outside private equities to further take away from our land, increase the bills for our people here. If you really, really want to see New Mexico get better, I suggest you invest in your communities. Speaking as just somebody working in healthcare and just seeing people suffer, you know. This is, I'm taking time off work because I strongly believe in opposition of this acquisition. Thank you for your time. I'm done speaking.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom who signed up last week, either in person or online, who's now here to speak, provide comment? Just let me know in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, Sharon O'Connor, go ahead with your comment.
Hi, I really appreciate you having this meeting. I did show up last Thursday, and was quite surprised at the number of people who had turned out to make comments at that meeting. Sorry. So I've been a long-term I'm a long-term PNM customer. I'm also the parent of 2 young adults. And my background is I spent over 25 years in banking, both in New York City and in London. I moved to New Mexico in 2018 for family reasons and have come to really appreciate the beauty and uniqueness of New Mexico. I'm here today to ask the Commission to refrain from approving any private equity acquisition of PNM. Private equity are complex entities, and their mandate is to maximize profits, to maximize the return to their private equity investors. Private equity also lacks regulatory oversight or standard disclosures. By giving them PNM or letting them acquire PNM, you're basically allowing them to have control over our electrical grid, over our electricity, over the pricing that will be driving our our utility prices. So I've been looking at this, and my opposition is really based on 2 or 3 points. The first one is the economics. Blackstone has publicly said that they aim to vertically integrate our electricity. So they're going to own the components that will go in to the grid, the electrical grid, and then the AI centers, the data centers that will be utilizing the electricity. With this ownership, they will have a monopoly of the vertical chain and will be the driver of our cost and the potential for our cost increases. This will concentrate power literally and figuratively that will hurt consumers. Have consequences for our climate as these AI data centers look to provide their own kind of electricity, which could include fossil fuels. We've been fighting for 20 to 25 years to stop air pollution, water pollution, and to maintain the integrity of our regulations. By having an acquisition by private equity, we will be giving away a lot of that oversight, a lot of those rights, and it's very concerning to me. The third point, so the first point is the economics, that it will potentially drive up costs for us. The second point was the climate. The third point is that private equity has a pattern of very destructive value creation or value destruction within industries. There have been numerous cases where they have come in and granted here they're loading it with equity, but in the past they've loaded it with debt that then creates a burden on the entity. They typically are not long-term investors. They're mid-term investors. They like to get out in like 10 to 12 years. That's not long-term to me. I've heard people talk about that. I think we have alternatives, and I think one of the big alternatives to consider is this Senate Memorial 9 proposition that is calling for evaluating having our permanent fund or some of our state funds to invest in PNM if we're looking to kind of take it back into the public domain where we would have more control. And it would give us a diversification away from oil and gas that has been one of the primary drivers of our permanent fund. And it would allow us to have more flexibility around pricing with regard to our consumers. So I ask you for those 3 points, the economics, the climate, and the history of private equity, and this alternative that's been proposed to allow the state to become involved in this process and at least evaluate whether that's an alternative. So I ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Okay, next, Leandra Schuler, go ahead with your comment.
Sorry, trying to figure out how to unmute. I see what the problem is with everyone. My name's Leandra Schuler. I am here again after coming last week, waiting to talk. I noticed that the only people for it are business and only think about business and are not thinking about the community at large and our overall health. We do want jobs to come in, but we want those jobs to not impact our health and our environment. If we do not have the ability to pay for our utilities, what's the point of a job that's not going to pay us a living wage? Another thing is if we don't have protected resources or the ability to get our utilities paid, how are we supposed to take care of our children and pay for schooling? Everything's going up. We need to find trusted sources for utilities, perhaps another utility provider, or there are memorials coming up tomorrow to speak of that look into New Mexico possibly buying their own, paying for part in this utilities. I'm sorry, I just parked, so because I just came back from where I thought you guys were going to have the meeting, but we are against it. And again, the people who are not against it are thinking of corporations more than the people here in New Mexico. Last week, we heard from a young man who can't even move out of his parents' home because of the cost, and utilities are going up significantly. We can't do that to New Mexican families. We can't afford to allow private equity to come in and do what they want to our state. I appreciate your time, and I will see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay. If there's anyone else on Zoom who signed up last week who is here to provide comment now, please let me know. Okay, Jonathan Wolf, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I want to echo some of the sentiments I've been hearing from the people, and thank you for listening to us. I want to say that I am strongly opposed to the proposed acquisition of PNM. I believe it is not in the best interests of the people of New Mexico. We should be setting our own energy priorities, not out-of-state private equity firms looking out for their shareholders. They are not New Mexicans. We are. The future is obviously, to anyone who's paying attention, electrified. And whoever controls the electrical systems controls the future. Blackstone is very clear about their interests, their desire to control the whole vertical stack, from creation or production to distribution to the data centers for AI. I don't mind AI in itself, but we should not be building giant new gas-powered, polluting energy systems to power those. We should have some say in how that works, right? We could actually expand solar fields to power those data centers. We should make those choices, not Blackstone. Those data centers require massive generating capacity. It's not going to be paid for by those data companies. It's going to be paid for by their utility ratepayers. That's how it works. And we should not be captive to their strategies for profit maximization. That's going to pollute our communities, and we'll be forced to pay for it. I find that outrageous. PNM obviously really wants this acquisition to happen. They stand to profit greatly, their shareholders, and the business community, as has been pointed out, seems to be behind this. But everybody else, all the people of New Mexico, are outspoken and clear, and I understand why, because people have learned that private equity sucks the soul out of economies and hollows out our local economies to the detriment of all of us people who actually work here and live here and love New Mexico. Do they really think they can bribe us with a short-term $100-something million temporary rate cut? I hope not. People don't pay a lot of attention and it sounds good, but realistically, that's a drop in the bucket for those guys, and they stand to make billions and billions and own us. We need to not let that happen. History shows that when big businesses consolidate and form monopolies, the costs to consumers go up, and that is exactly what will happen here. I urge you to stand up for the interests of us as New Mexicans and not allow this dangerous takeover to happen. Thank you.
Okay, next, Sarah Thorpe, go ahead with your comment.
Hi, thanks for taking my comment. I'm Sarah Thorpe. I'm a family medicine physician in New Mexico. I work actually in the Permian Basin in the southeast part of the state, and I am calling in to urge you to vote against this. We do not need Blackstone or any other private equity company to take over PNM in our state. I'm sort of speaking to you from two perspectives. One is the health perspective of working with people, the oil producing area of the country, and seeing the impact that has. There are different companies working down there, and some of them are there are different safety practices, I'll just say, and there's been no moment in history ever where private equity has prioritized the safety and health of the communities that they operate in. I also want to speak to you as a physician, having worked in multiple healthcare facilities and hospitals. I appreciate the person who spoke from Texas saying, this is what has happened to us, and I can tell you from an industry that has been dramatically impacted by private equity, every single time it's BS. Every single time they're putting their profits above people, and they have to, because that's what fiduciary responsibility means. They are legally obligated to put the wealth of people on the stock market ahead of anything that has to do with our health or our wealth or our infrastructure. Legally, they are required to sell us out, to wring out every bit of profit that they can from us. It's not about what's good for us. And when I speak this in the healthcare industry, what I'm saying is they have bought out hospitals. Every single time they come to a hospital, they say, oh, your hospital is struggling. You know what we'd really like to do? We'd like to give you an investment. We'd like to give you a capital investment, which every single person who's spoken for the business community has been eating up. It's a joke. We know what happens. They say, we're going to give you new facilities. We're going to give you a new MRI machine. We're going to give you all these things that are going to help the community. And every single time they cut services, I can tell you from my field, when they do studies about healthcare outcomes, people die. In private equity run hospitals, more people die. If your family member or your loved one goes to one of those hospitals or that's their clinic, they die because they cut services, and they have to cut services because any money they put in, they're taking 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times as much out. Because that's what private equity does. They are not our friends. They're not here to help us. No little tidbit of little thing that they're trying to treat us with. It's not for us. The people who have seen this in other industries can tell you that private industry is a disaster everywhere it shows up. PNM is a company or is an organization that's supposed to serve the people of New Mexico, and the people of New Mexico are not fools. We're not fools. Don't treat us like in the small commission that's getting to make this decision. Don't treat us like fools. Don't sell us into this disaster that we have seen devastate every single other communities in. And don't sell my patients, who I take care of in the Permian Basin, that need a different energy future, not what they're doing now. We need better for New Mexico. And if you're on this commission, you have a role to think for New Mexicans, not think for just the business industries. Vote no. Do not allow this merger or takeover. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Before I continue, I just want to let people know, if you're on Zoom, if you already provided your comment, if you wouldn't mind logging off and watching the rest of the hearing on our YouTube channel. And there is a link in the chat box for that. That we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And again, is there anyone else here on Zoom who signed up last week, who's here now to speak? Please let me know. Either raise your hand or put your name in the chat. Okay, Rita, Shukla, go ahead. Rita, go ahead with your
I'm
comment.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not great with technology. Well, first of all, thank you for letting me speak. I was at that meeting on Thursday, and I'm also here to urge you to reject the sale of PNM to Blackstone Private Equity. I live in Los Ranchos, and my husband and I care for our 8-year-old special needs child as well as my elderly in-laws. And when I learned that the private equity group Blackstone is poised to buy PNM, I wondered what are the implications. And those implications are that the cost of the build out and plus that interest, it's going to fall on New Mexican families. And any short-term rate credits that they offer are going to be meaningless compared to how much the private investors will gain. Our rates are going to eventually increase. And from what I've read, the reason Blackstone is even interested in purchasing the utilities is that they want to make money off the AI boom and the growing number of data centers being built. Data centers that steal our precious water, waste energy, and pollute our land. And we don't want any of it. Regular New Mexicans are tired of being taken advantage of by unregulated corporations who don't care whether we live or die, or have heat or groceries as long as they get richer. The people of New Mexico want a future for our children. I'm tired of explaining to my 8-year-old son how the bad guys in the superhero movies are actually real life villains. Instead of fending off private equity, I would much rather be talking about other solutions that some of the other participants and speakers have mentioned, how we can use more renewable, sustainable energy sources so there's clean air and water for the future generations. And I hate to be that cliche parent imploring everyone to think about the children, but that is how I feel. And I'm ashamed of how acceptable it's become in our culture for private equity firms like Blackstone to lie, cheat, and steal from ordinary, honest citizens just trying to get by. And thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, and again, if anyone who is here who signed up last week to provide comment, let me know. Okay, seeing none, I will call on Sandy Stolberg next.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my comments. So many people have spoken and have done it eloquently. They've brought science, they've brought facts, they've brought research. It just is a mountain of evidence that has been mounted that supports denying this merger, this buyout. And then I have to reflect, and it just touches my heart to see the turnout of the people who are going to be so extremely affected by what's going on here. That these, we come to you humbly. We are just ordinary people who are speaking from our heart, who understand how things are going to change. Just recently, we've learned that, the way that this private equity is going to work, so maybe they won't take on debt, but they are going to be building their capital, and we are going to be paying a premium, not only for the buyout that they do, the 23% premium of what they're going to pay, but then when they increase this portfolio, we're going to continue to pay, 9.43% as ratepayers, that we will continue to pay that. And then when you just look at it in a logical way, that this balance sheet doesn't work out. They're not going to put all this money in just because they're good people, because we know that they're not. We are, as ratepayers, are going to pay that. And then, there's so much to say about how wrong this is. And we do know that their aim is to double very quickly what our ratepayers are going to pay. They might be giving us, little pieces of candy in the beginning, but in the end, they're going to take everything that we have. And it's a rapacious type of business model that we need to stay away from. There's just so much to say, and I really hope that you will be so very, very careful in your consideration of this. And I have to go back to some of the people who've said, why are we even here? This should have been a hard no from the very beginning. And it just, a friend of mine once told me that the kind of people that scare her the most are the people who show up in fancy clothes and suits, because those are the ones who are going to take all your money, do it legally, and do it with a smile on their face because they're going to get away with it. So thank you so much for taking my comments.
Thank you. Next, Jeanette Salazar.
Good afternoon. This is Jeanette Salazar. I'm just going to say I support each of the folks that spoke last week and today against the acquisition, wholeheartedly against it. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Next, Carmela Dominguez. Carmela, go ahead with your comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Carmela. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I want to say I am completely opposed to any decision that would allow Blackstone private equity corporation of huge size to offer to buy out PNM. The carrot on the stick that they're offering of credit balances to PNM customers will run out very quickly. And then we're going to see huge rate increases. Blackstone has a very bad reputation for not considering the local population in such an enterprise. So I want to go on record as saying that I am completely opposed to this, very strongly oppose it. That's all.
Okay, next. We have Sarah Namaste.
Thank you so much. My name is Saida Namaste. I live in Albuquerque. I'm a PNM customer and I'm a homeowner, and I oppose the acquisition by Blackstone. I would love to see public utility instead. And I'm echoing what you've heard other people talk about at the last few hearings. Private equity is about profit. And I read my PNM bill and I saw all the promises being made to us and the ones that have been repeated by Chamber of Commerce today. And I still don't want that. I don't trust that. I don't want profit to be first. And the hard thing about being a PNM customer is I don't have a choice. In our state, we don't get to choose the different utility companies. There's only one. And I don't want it to be taken by private equity. So I hope you'll go with the people. Thank you.
Okay. And also as a reminder, if you are on Zoom, if you already spoken, provide your comment. If you wouldn't mind logging off and watching the rest of the hearing on our YouTube channel, we greatly appreciate it. And a link to that YouTube channel is in the chat box. Okay. Next, Ann Stauffer. Go ahead with your comment.
Hello. Yes, this is Ann Stauffer. And I just want to, I'm here today to ask you to reject the buyout of PNM by Blackstone. I'm a resident of New Mexico, of Albuquerque, and the buyout would seriously harm me and all the other residents, as well as would seriously harm the water resources in the state of New Mexico. The other thing to mention is I think that the overall private equity goals and objectives differ completely from a regulated public utility. The private equity is really about profits for its investors. A public utility is really about providing a safe, reliable, and affordable service to the customers. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that the Blackstone actually has a really poor reputation. When PNM, let's see, when Blackstone purchased a stake in the Northern Indiana Public Service Company, it purchased it in 2023, and it has resulted in a significant increases in gas and electrical bills. And the other thing, if you look online, in the last couple of weeks, there's actually been public rally in the streets against the Northern Indiana Public Service Company because of the increase in rates. So I oppose this, and I please consider all of the negative things that can occur with this buyout. So thank you, though, for having this hearing and letting me talk.
Okay, next, Melissa Homan. Go ahead with your comment. Melissa Homan. All right, move on. Michael Schwartz. Michael. Okay. Let's see. I see Doug's iPhone. Is that Doug Majewski?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Doug, go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Doug Majewski, and I'm the president of the Hartman Majewski Design Group here in New Mexico. I also serve as a chair of the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce Downtown Transformation Group. Our firm specializes in designing architectural projects that make our community stronger throughout New Mexico. I am here today to support the proposed Blackstone acquisition of PNM from the perspective of a local business leader. As a business community, we are dedicated to supporting reliable, affordable, and renewable energy for our market. The Energy Transition Act will require adding approximately 0.5 gigawatt of capacity each year. The capital investment and improvements needed for grid reliability represent a $3 to $4 billion proposition over the next 5 years. In short, it will be very difficult for PNM to raise this amount of capital on its own. That is why this acquisition makes sense. What is needed is patient capital, long-term capital that is not driven by the pressures of quarterly earnings as publicly traded companies are. Blackstone will use what is called Evergreen Infrastructure Fund, which measures success over the long term, not the short term. This is a real advantage. This is a real advantage for the citizens of New Mexico. Additionally, Blackstone is committed to using equity, not debt, to complete the transaction, thereby ensuring that the debt cannot be pushed down to PNM and ultimately to all of us ratepayers. Moving New Mexico further into the modern economy requires a strong energy delivery backbone. Without that, we cannot support the kind of economic development that will bring more investment, more and better jobs, and more innovative companies to our state. We must honestly face the reality that PNM needs outside investment, and the proposed acquisition meets that need with very strong safeguards. I urge the PRC to give it your approval. Thank you very much.
Okay, next, Natalia Inoa. Or Inoa.
My name is Natalia Albuquerque for over 11 years, and this is my home. My relatives live here, and I have
Natalia, go ahead, continue with your comment.
a deep opposition to them. I believe it should stay in the community as we are the ones who live with community members. And the environment is a major concern for our community.
Okay, I'll move on. I see a name, Stella. Don't see it on the sign up list. Stella, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to move on. There's a Pauline on Zoom. And moving on, Melissa Homan again. If you're there, please provide your comment. Okay, if there's anyone else on Zoom who has not provided comment yet, please let me know. Okay, hearing none. Mr. Chair, it looks like those on Zoom have already provided comment or not getting a response.
Patrick, do you have other people who signed up and haven't provided comment yet?
We do. Yeah, and I know of at least 2 people who said they would log in later.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a good time to take a break. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we can resume at 4:30, and we'll see if we have anybody else in the queue for public comment. Okay. We'll resume at 4:30. Okay, so it seems like we have our court reporter back, and we could continue with our public comment. Patrick, do we have anybody in the queue?
Yes, Mr. Chair, let me get situated back here. Okay, Bridget Dixon, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Bridget Dixon, and I serve as the President and CEO of the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce. And our mission is to strengthen the local economy by supporting businesses and advocating for smart public policy and fostering a strong and resilient New Mexico business community. We represent more than 600 members across northern New Mexico. From the Chamber's perspective, affordable, reliable, and modern energy infrastructure is essential to economic growth and workforce stability. Businesses of all sizes depend on predictable energy costs and long-term infrastructure investment to plan, grow, retain employees. I'm encouraged by the commitments included in the proposed acquisition of TXNM Energy and PNM by Blackstone Infrastructure, particularly in the historic customer rate credit, long-term investment focus, and commitments to workforce development and grid modernization. I appreciate the Commission's careful review of this matter and the opportunity for public input. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I was on mute. Rachel Coleman, go ahead with your comment. Rachel Coleman, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rachel Coleman. I'm a Democratic precinct chair and a psychologist here in Albuquerque. I'm here to speak in opposition to the buyout, and I respectfully urge you to protect the public by denying this application. This deal sets off all my protective instincts for our New Mexican community. Blackstone wants to buy PNM because it would be hugely profitable for them. And those profits would primarily go to out-of-state investors. We, the people of New Mexico, should keep that profit here and invest it in our home communities. As the previous commenter was saying, it's about local economic development. Developing our clean energy wealth ourselves is a much better option for all of our long-term economic and ecological futures than giving it away to an outside profiteer. And I'm not sure why we would do that unless it's just we don't have the confidence, right, to lead our own futures here at home. The better options that in-home, in-state development are already being visioned, and proposals are in the legislature right now by Senator Pope and Representative Roybal Caballero that can get us started in that right direction. I would love it if you can listen to the consumers like me and my neighbors, the community, the local, real people of New Mexico, and say no to this outside deal. Thank you.
Okay, next, Tom Briones.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Tom Briones. I'm a business lawyer here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're a small boutique business. We solely represent New Mexico-owned companies, 100%. I was born and raised in Farmington. My father's from Carlsbad. My mother's from Aztec. So long roots in New Mexico. Went to UNM, go Lobos. But thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and why I'm testifying in support of this transaction. As a company who represents business owners, we see every day the issues of making sure that there's sufficient power to make sure that my clients can operate their projects and, excuse me, there's my camera, can get their projects done on time, and that they can make sure that there's sufficient power for the growth in the future, et cetera. And recognizing that there needs to be resources available to PNM to be able to make sure that there are shovel-ready sites to make sure this is an economically viable state. We're losing residents. We're losing business opportunities out of state because, quite frankly, many of my clients are leaving the state of New Mexico because of greater opportunities in other state. Power is a very important piece of that equation. So I was very much concerned about a private equity like Blackstone coming in and taking part or doing this transaction. We do a lot of mergers and acquisitions in my practice. We have done a lot of mergers and acquisitions with private equity. And I will say that there are definitely private equity firms that I'm very leery of, that I would be very much opposed to, because they do have a mentality of, coming in, taking what they can, jacking up prices, and then selling it off to repay their investors, usually in a 3 to 5 year span. So I was very concerned, and I did my research. I went and researched Blackstone, and in particular, this fund that they set up specifically for utilities. And the sole purpose is to invest long term, to have steady, reliable returns for investors. And so and the money that they're putting up, the necessary funding to make the power available to New Mexico in the future is hard to do. PNM has limited bonding capacity to do expansive projects. This allows for the liquidity for them to be able to fund the growth that they need to do to be able to for us to have any economic growth in this state. And my research has shown that this fund does that, and their purpose is a keep and hold strategy, not a grab and sell. So this looks like a transaction that I think in the long run is very good for New Mexico and necessary for us to have an economic environment that keeps us competitive with other surrounding states. So as somebody who represents small business and locally owned businesses, I can say from the small business community, this is a transaction that we support. One final comment is if you look
Dennis,
at
I'm sorry,
investment,
your time is expired.
I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if for those on, just want to remind those on Zoom, if you're only here to watch the hearing, or if you've already provided comment during today's hearing, please log off and watch the rest of the hearing on our YouTube channel, and there's a link to that YouTube channel in the chat. And that being said, is there anyone else here on Zoom who's here to provide comment? Okay, Maria, go ahead and please provide your name, your full name.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Maria Hakis. I did sign up online to speak publicly today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm a longtime resident of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm here to just pose my opposition against Blackstone's acquisition of PNM. I strongly believe that this type of buyout disproportionately impacts communities of color, and it will cause irreparable damage to our community's health and our local environment. New Mexico is an incredibly diverse state and one that holds community and family at the top of its priority list. This acquisition goes against our community's values by putting profit first at all costs. PNM should continue to be run publicly by publicly traded entities, which will continue to allow the public's access to information about its management. And should we require growth, I really liked a lot of the comments that I've heard on today's call, indicating that we are heading in the right direction and we should continue to source solutions from local options as opposed to supporting a large-scale buyout by a private entity. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And again, if you're here to provide comment, please speak up or raise your hand. I'm not recognizing any of these names on Zoom here. Okay, oh, okay, Mr. Chair, it doesn't look like anyone else is here for comment at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, since we don't have anybody waiting to provide comment, let's go ahead and resume at 5 o'clock, and maybe we'll have people sign on by then. We'll listen to their comment. Patrick, are you ready?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, yeah, if we have anybody, Patrick, please go ahead and manage the comment.
Okay, I haven't received any new signups, so I'll just call out for those on Zoom. If you are here to provide comment, please let me know. All right, Mr. Chair, it doesn't sound like we have anyone else here for comment.
Okay, then let's try again at 5:30. So let's go on recess until 5:30. Okay, it is 5:30, so we'll go ahead and resume with the public comment hearing. I'll turn it over to Patrick Rodriguez, who is handling the public commenter order. So Patrick, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, we do have some new people on Zoom for comment. So I'll start with Sharon Argenbright.
Yes, good afternoon. PRC, members of the committee. My name is Sharon Argenbright. I've been a resident of Santa Fe for over 30 years and a registered nurse for almost 50 years. I subsidize PNM by transmitting back through the interconnector electricity I don't use. My solar panels always generate more than I use. PNM sells it back to customers for more than what I would earn pennies to the dollar. I do not want my extra kilowatts to be rerouted from New Mexico through Blackstone to Saudi Arabia. I need it to stay right here in New Mexico to be used by the people who need it for free. I worked for an extractive industry. When a private equity hedge fund bought the hospital, nurse attrition rate escalated due to the doubling of a nurse's assignment of patients. I could do a really good job taking care of 4 patients on med-surg, but when we were told we would be taking care of 8 patients at a time, I began to seek safe staffing legislation because these people will not do the right thing unless mandated by law. I worked 8-hour shifts my whole career until private equity came in. Mandatorily, I was put on 12-hour shifts at the age of 60. Within 2 months, I was terminated for whistleblowing. I won my wrongful termination case. This private equity removed the medical library from the hospital. Employees depended on that. There was no transparency in the agreement about what they planned. There was nothing we could do to stop them. The public was harmed. The public is still being harmed by private equity. Now, in proposed legislation, HB 99, private equity wants to lower medical malpractice caps again to recruit doctors to New Mexico. It's not the doctor's fault malpractice premiums are skyrocketing here. This is what happens when private equity takes over. They fleece staffing, they fleece services that don't make money, and there will be nothing we could do to stop them. I think our electricians union could build a grid, and New Mexico State Investment Council can foster and promote financial backing. Commissioners, please don't go there. Stop this in its tracks. Thank you for taking my comment.
Okay, next, Mark Lagunas, go ahead with your comment.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mark Archer. I'm a software engineer and Albuquerque resident for the past 3 years. My wife and I moved from Texas to escape the mismanagement of its failing power grid, and we were directly affected by the 2021 grid failure, which led to nearly 250 deaths. And I'm concerned we've jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire. I only have 4 key points. First is affordability with regard to this acquisition or merger. No private equity company has ever lowered or maintained rates after purchasing a utility. If they ever had, you would hear it shouted from the rooftops and added to their arguments. Most of the folks who have commented would probably be for it, other concerns aside, but that's simply not the case. And their profit doesn't come from efficiency, although layoffs are almost certainly guaranteed, but from raising customer rates. My second point about reliability is, again, that the history is well documented. Many folks have spoken to that, and we can expect little to no reliability. Third key point, accountability. Blackstone has deep pockets. We've already seen them flout the rules when it comes to the purchase of TXNM and not getting PRC approval for that stock buyout, which is perhaps is still pending, or perhaps they thought that it was a shoo-in. We've already got a problem with money in politics, And I'm curious how quickly Blackstone stooges will be installed or if existing ones could get compromised. Our current federal administration has shown a flagrant disregard for the rule of law, and my concern is we won't have any recourse as customers and as citizens for abuse of these terms. Finally, are the long-term impacts. If this merger and acquisition is approved, we've heard this tune before. I think we need to support Pueblo communities and other folks who, again, are in a very small minority, but have expressed support for this. However, they are essentially asking for crumbs off a billionaire's plate. And I think there are better ways to support those folks in need and give them the resources they need. In my opinion, it'll be lights out for New Mexico, and for any pretense that this commission ensures fair, just, and reasonable policy for the people of New Mexico if this gets approved. So I am very much against it, and I thank you for hearing my comment. Thanks.
Okay, next, Jacoba, and if you wouldn't mind stating your first and last name.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Oh, classic. Apologies. Well, thank you first for your time. My name is Jacoba, or Kobe Wixelar. I've grown up in New Mexico my whole life. I lived in Albuquerque and I'm now in Santa Fe. And I feel like I've been reviewing all of the kind of facts and the fiscal impacts for the future and really wanted to speak from a place of the heart. I do a lot of work with children and I'm just in my early 30s and kind of trying to do that math of like what is reasonable to expect from the national economy long term and especially our state economy. And I feel like this decision about potentially selling all of our energy infrastructure to the largest private equity company in the whole world is like definitely about the logistics and how it will make it even harder for those of us who live paycheck to paycheck. But I also feel like on a global scale, we're participating in this battle of values. And I just really wanted to vocalize my support for commissioners who would stand for choosing to try and keep as much of the like transparency and control and ability to actually pursue things like justice and accountability of decision makers, to keep that as local as possible. Everything that I've read, everything that I've looked at would suggest that like the like regulation commission, the PRC, would likely not be able to compete with the budget of this private equity firm if they do start doing things that are going against different environmental laws or social laws or human rights. And I just feel like there's never been a more clear time in contemporary US history to witness how prioritizing profit over lives, and not just like human lives, like how that ends, and that we're really at this point in time of needing to decide whether there's going to be a livable future for children. And I feel like this is a beautiful chance for New Mexico to really continue paving this like future of different values. And I'm really grateful to be living here right now. And I really hope that I get to celebrate the day when New Mexico stands against the sale of our infrastructure to a global equity firm. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your work.
Okay, next, Chris Clay.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for hearing me out. My name is Chris Gonzalez Clay. I have been living in the state of New Mexico my entire life. I've actually just purchased my childhood home from my parents so that they would be able to purchase a home that was formerly my grandmother's. I bring all that up because my roots are embedded deep in this community, and the idea that $1 trillion organization coming in and taking our power, literally, from us, I think that's very scary, and I think that's very devastating for the future. I have just a couple small things I just really want to put out there. When Blackstone purchased 5,800 properties for rental, this was back in 2022. they raised the rates 43 to 64% in 2 years. What do you think? My fear is, what are they going to do with our power? What are they going to do with our electricity? They can raise it that much. I know they're saying they're going to keep management here, but management doesn't make these decisions. A board of executives makes these decisions. I really, really would like, if you can, please tell them, no, we're not for sale. That's really everything I have to say. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you, yeah, once again.
Okay, next, Eileen O'Shaughnessy.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Eileen O'Shaughnessy, and I am a high school teacher and a PNM ratepayer here in Albuquerque. And I'm here to urge you to say no to Blackstone acquiring PNM. I was on the Zoom last week with, at one point there was about 160 people, 160 of us waiting to speak. And as you know, we were not allowed to speak last week. And I know that the room that the hearing took place in was at capacity, that it was over full. People were, it sounded like, unable to even enter. And, you know, I just want to emphasize that I hope this is not lost on you, you know, how many people from all walks of life in our community are showing up to speak to you about this. Like, this is how much we care. And thank you to the organizers for adding these extra days to hear our voices, because this is an incredibly important issue with long-lasting consequences. I want to echo the concerns that I've heard people speak to here today and also last week about higher rates, about the questionable ethics of an incredibly corrupt private equity firm controlling a public utility, and also the inevitable environmental ravaging that will unfold in their wake. Something that I am personally really concerned about in terms of Blackstone's plans to build data centers, likely powered by SMRs, which are small modular nuclear reactors. SMRs, what they are, they're basically scaled down nuclear reactors that have all the same problems as conventional reactors. They're incredibly expensive to build, they're accident prone, and they create deadly radioactive waste. And so the very last thing that New Mexico needs is more nuclear waste and nuclear injustice, threatening water, land, air, and communities. And the last thing I'll say, I just want to speak to the devastating history here in New Mexico of uranium mining that continues to haunt the landscape of New Mexico and to poison our communities. You know, private uranium companies that came into New Mexico largely have avoided any accountability for the long-lasting harm that they've caused. And this is the history that's at risk of being repeated if Blackstone is allowed to acquire PNM. And just to say a few words about the devastating history of uranium mining, the uranium mining companies that came in, the private companies, they knew full well the health risks to miners and to surrounding communities, and yet they allowed Pueblo and Dene miners to be overexposed to radon and other radioactive decay products. So I share that because that's part of the backdrop for why people in New Mexico have our guard up. You know, I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum, and you know, private equity companies like Blackstone, we've seen them before, basically. So the last thing I'll say is, commissioners, you have an opportunity today to avoid repeating harmful history, and also to make history as one of the few brave entities in the US willing to stand up against predatory billionaires and with the people. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else on Zoom that's here to provide comment? Mr. Chair, it doesn't look like we have any more comment at the moment.
Patrick, I think we have one.
Oh,
Harrison O'Connor. Yeah, we'll take your comment.
Okay, thank you. My name's Kayla O'Connor. And I have a toddler, so I feel like I have to speak very quickly and it probably won't be very thoughtful. But I have done a lot of reading about this, and I just want to strongly urge to not approve this acquisition. In my own experience, I have not seen private equity work out for average people. I've only seen it ever prioritize profit. So that's all I have to say.
okay. Anyone else here on Zoom here to provide comment? Just speak up or raise your hand. Okay, Mr. Chair, now it looks like everyone who has provided comment online currently is providing comment.
Okay. Since we have nobody in the queue right now, I think we could come back at 6 o'clock then. And we'll see if we have anybody waiting at that time. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Patrick, turn it over to you to see if we have any new commenters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we do have one new one. Adam Silverman, are you there?
Yes, Adam Silverman is here.
Okay, Adam, go ahead with your comment.
Thank you for letting me give some public comment. I'm here on behalf of myself and NEIOP, Commercial Real Estate Association for New Mexico, and we're in support of this. This really comes down to a aging infrastructure problem, and we need companies that are willing to come in, invest in our community. We need the money that's spent to run the infrastructure to the places that it needs to be. And so I'm very happy that this group has come to New Mexico. It is willing to buy our utility and continue on the work and keep the people in place, because I think this is going to be a really big win for our state. And I think our future selves will all thank us for making the right decision. So thank you for letting me speak, and I am in full support of this.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, it doesn't look like there's anyone else new in Zoom for public comment.
Okay. We'll do the same thing then we have been doing. We could come back at 6:30 and then we'll evaluate how much comment we have at that time. So we'll resume at 6:30. Okay, it's 6:30. We'll go ahead and resume the public comment session. Patrick, I'll turn it over to you to manage those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start with Daniel Stolberg.
Thank you for taking comments. I am Daniel Stolberg. I live and work in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I am against private equity taking over public utilities because if it fails, it will then revert to the state of New Mexico and the people of New Mexico to bail out the situation, because this is a vital and essential utility for the people of New Mexico. I think most of you have heard or seen or lived where private equity or other corporation comes in and buys an entity, and all of a sudden an entity that was successful and profitable becomes unprofitable because now the money that was used to purchase that entity is debt. They financed it. So now you have to pay to service the debt, and it makes it so much harder to be financially sustainable. And the other thing is that we've all heard about private equity and other purchases coming in, and all of a sudden the company's pension funds for the people who've worked there are gone somehow. So I would recommend and suggest if there's a way to put up a bond so that in case a private equity or other corporation comes in and purchases a vital service, that there is a bond, a surety. The attorneys will know how to do that, but that would protect pension funds, employee benefits, the costs of recovering and paying in case private equity bankrupts yet another public service or business. Thank you so very much for your consideration.
Okay, next, Brittany Means.
Hello, Brittany Means. I'm from Albuquerque, and I'm calling in opposition to selling PNM or any public utility to private equity company, specifically Blackstone. Plenty of people smarter than me on these calls and in these hearings have said countless reasons why it's a terrible idea to have a public utility owned by a private equity company. Yeah, when you have a company whose primary interest is profit, the people who rely on those services will inevitably suffer. There is no benefit to having a private equity company, especially one like Blackstone, with a long history of taking, companies, taking utility services and tearing them apart and essentially selling them for scraps, because the people don't matter, the profits matter in these cases. And I personally would love to keep living in New Mexico or like on this earth. So if you could please not do this incredibly foolish thing that so many people are telling you is a bad idea, and people who have degrees in this, and people who have the statistics, people who live here and care about the future for ourselves and for other people, don't do this thing, please, and thank you. That's all.
Okay, next, Nicholas Santiago.
Hello, members of the community. My name is Nicholas, members of the commission. My name is Nicholas Santiago, and I reside within the North Valley community. I am here today to ask each member of the commission to block Blackstone's acquisition of PNM's parent company, TXNM Energy. If Blackstone is allowed to buy PNM, that will hurt myself and people in my community on a financial level that we will not be able to recover from. Blackstone is a private corporation that is known to buy companies with the goal of slashing operation costs and skyrocketing profits just for the benefit of their shareholders. Blackstone is a known evil company with no empathy unless it comes to their shareholders. They have done this before as well with the previous utility company. They completely bought out that company and just used it to completely crunch the people within that community. I urge you to block this acquisition, and thank you for listening to my comment, members of the community, of the commission.
Okay, next, Scott Lopez.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Scott Lopez. I'm a New Mexico native, a Marine Corps veteran, the founder of the New Mexico Nuclear Alliance, and host of the New Mexico Energy Policy Symposium under Vida Mejor Capital. In those roles, I work across our state's energy ecosystem, utilities, regulators, local governments, tribes, labs, universities, and community leaders. I'm here, one of the few, in strong support of the proposed acquisition of PNM by Blackstone Infrastructure. Here's the real deal. PNM is a homegrown New Mexico company. That matters. And what also matters is making sure it has access to the capital required to deliver reliable, affordable, resilient power to our families and our businesses. This transaction brings significant measurable commitments, including substantial rate credits for customers, expanded low-income assistance funding, and meaningful economic development investments across our state. Just as important, PNM remains regulated by this commission. Local management remains in place. Headquarters remain in New Mexico. That continuity is critical. New Mexico is growing. Our grid is evolving, meeting Energy Transition Act requirements, modernizing infrastructure, strengthening transmission. All of that requires long-term capital and long-term thinking. From my perspective, this partnership aligns capital with responsibility. I support the deal because I believe it can reinforce what we all want, everybody on this call and these open meetings, a reliable, affordable, resilient energy future for New Mexico. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you very much.
Okay, next, Diana Shea.
Thank you. Thank you for holding this meeting. My husband and I have been consumers of PNM for more than 50 years, and we've been shareholders since 1981. We are members of the public, owning a tiny piece of our public utility. We don't own this stock to make a profit, but to support the utility that in turn supports us. A private equity firm has a business model diametrically opposed to that of the public utility industry. The first is to make as much money as possible, but we need an invaluable product supported necessary for our survival. Thank you for listening.
Next, Samantha Hobbs.
Hello, commissioners. Thank you. Thank you for taking comment. I'm Samantha. I was born and raised here on Tiwa land. I'm a full-time programmer, I'm raising a family, and I'm commenting in opposition, firm opposition to Blackstone's purchase of PNM. The people, the ratepayers, you have heard them so far, have overwhelmingly made their point about their personal stakes, their interests, and you are here to represent their interests, right? Your existence, your social contract with us is for the use case ahead, like before you, which is giant, untrustworthy corporation that for multitudes of reasons, we all see this as adverse to our personal interests. We have a commission here who, thank God, can step up and do something. So I want to send that message to you. This could be a message to your future self, that the way the public is interpreting this after what we witnessed from last week and just what's going to be your future, we will interpret, if the sale goes through, that as having been an act of negligence on the part of the commission. Like, we will interpret that as having been negligence, corruption, perhaps. That will be, we'll wonder, like, how could that have possibly gone through? So I want you to understand that. This buyout would turn ratepayers into direct subjects of Blackstone's billionaire first agenda. Their business model is adversarial to the interests of the ratepayers and opposite to your priorities. I don't care what concessions Blackstone makes We don't want the future where Blackstone's agenda succeeds, where whatever they were planning here with the data centers, whatever partnerships, that access to capital, that is the whole pitch you're making to us. We don't want that. Like, these are the people who are ruining our lives in so many different ways, in so many different dimensions of our reality. Now they want to own our power company. Are you serious? So no, like, this is a rejection of that. You are here to represent our rejection of just yet another attack on our like economic and personal liberties from these like billionaire parasites. So please, please reject them. Where the people value transparency, democracy, and public benefit, Blackstone values secrecy, bourgeois dictatorship, and extraction. Their fiduciary duty is always to their investor first. There's no concessions they can make to us that are in our favor that we can't calculate back and say, but hey, you know, if we're worth this, why are you going in? Like, we gotta know our self-worth here. I would rather we run it ourselves. I would rather it be worse. I would rather us have the mistakes. I would rather us take on the liability. I would rather go without, because honestly, if the billionaires are cashing out, they seem to be of the opinion that this new world order is over, that there's a new world order coming and the old order is collapsing and whatever. So let's see it the way they see it and give ourselves the self-respect of believing that, yeah, we actually can do it without them, and that I think we largely are better off the less power they literally and politically have here, the better. That is what I want. That's my interest. So please represent that. I ask you, bar Blackstone. Do not let it go through. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to check to see if anyone else on Zoom would like to provide comment who hasn't already. Okay, hearing no one. Mr. Chair, it looks like those on Zoom who have already provided comment, and there's no new signups.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing as we have no more public comment, nobody's waiting at this moment to provide public comment. I think we can go ahead and conclude today's public comment. Thank you to everybody who provided their comment. We appreciate hearing from you. We do have another public comment session that we have noticed. The location has not been finalized, but once we have that location, we will update the notice.
Mr. Chair, there's someone who just entered Zoom. Their name is iPhone. Are you here for public comment?
Oh, yes, actually, I absolutely am.
Okay, please state your first and last name and proceed with your comment.
My name is Julian Boink. I am a resident down here in South Valley of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am calling because there have been people in my neighborhood talking about this potential acquisition, and it's something that I am concerned about for the future of all things, as we are continuing to move through this new era of information and AI-driven acquisition in particular. We're entering an era where tangible material things are being turned into to memes, into into something that is like not actually real. And these are the companies that are doing it, right? The Blackstone, the Vanguard, the the BlackRock, of which these major hedge fund companies are major shareholders of Blackstone. These are organizations that have used this like AI memification for the purpose and price fixing, to be completely honest, through through softwares that are used for legal rent fixing purposes here in our community, but very specifically on the East Coast. I question why a public utility company, which is something that is like for the people, that is served by the people, I question why we would be giving ourselves over to like to this kind of acquisition, to this kind of gross, like negligent, fake money, right? This is just like money manufacturing money. These are this is the capitalist ruling class, that the Illuminati that everyone is like making conspiracies about, right? These are the people who have this kind of influence and power inside of communities to gouge, to have created the greatest the greatest acquisition of wealth from bottom to the top that has ever been seen on this earth. The pharaohs had nothing in comparison to what these hedge fund organizations, the amount of money that moves through them, the people who are a part of these organizations, who sit on each other's boards, the boards of major energy corporations. These are the people who are taking all of our land, all of our utilities, all of our water. Like, why would we want something like that inside of our community? What is the purpose of having something like that inside of our community, except to make like a quick buck, to like the proposed efficacy of privatization? Like, we've seen where that kind of privatization ends up. It ends up with like price fixing. Whether you look at major airlines, whether you look at like the corporate rental market, whether you look at even our own utilities, man, like people all over the world are suffering. People all over this country are suffering. People here in our country are suffering because of these people, because of the things that they are funding and continue to fund across the globe. This is one of the worst ideas that has come across the table here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, since like the National Guard being deployed to treat homelessness and like addiction. Okay, cool, guys, whatever. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, we do have one more. Monica Stevens, go ahead with the comment.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Monica Stevens. I am from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I have the privilege of sharing in public comment. So thank you for this. I'm very concerned about the environmental impacts that this can have. Too many times people from outside of New Mexico come and take over, and we know the implications of what that can do. That can make things rise dramatically cost-wise, and we already are struggling in New Mexico with so many people struggling with poverty, and how it's so important that New Mexico, the people have the power to say what is needed in our communities regarding all things that happen. You know, I grew up here. This is my home. And so I just really urge you all to consider listening to the community about how we don't want prices to go up, how we don't want more drastic environmental implications in our community, and how we want the people to control what goes on. Just like you all, you know, you are appointed in these positions to support New Mexicans. And so I just urge you to do what's right by New Mexico. I also know that an Indigenous person tried to log on to comment, and so they weren't able to because of their internet. And I'm not sure if someone shared their comment earlier, because I had to log on through the computer. But their comments, and they're going to send an email as well, that they wanted to express that Indigenous communities can be excluded through a Zoom format because they don't have access to broad internet. It costs them data to use their phone. And so they're not able to often come to these spaces to speak. And a lot of the elders don't know how to use that type of technology through Zoom. And so they're wanting other ways that people can join and provide input about how this will have implications in their community. So thank you all for your time.
Okay, Mr. Chair, now that concludes public comment.
Mr. Chair, I just received confirmation about the public comment hearing location on Tuesday. If you want me to announce that, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, if that has been finalized and we're ready to do that, I think right now is a good time. And obviously we will update the notice as well. Please go ahead.
So it will be held at the University of New Mexico Student Union Building, which is at 203 Cornell Drive Southeast here in Albuquerque in Ballroom C. And it's on Tuesday, February 17th from 1 o'clock until 7 o'clock. And we will post that, PNM will post that on their website, and we will post that PRC will post it on our website and in our social media. Thank you.
What ballroom number was that?
Ballroom C, Commissioner. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that timely update. I think that since we have nobody else waiting, that concludes our public comment session for today. Again, thank you for your comments. Have a good night. We are